So here I am logged in into my DigitalOcean account. In networking, I can go to firewalls. I have the Kubernetes cluster firewall. And here I already did it. I added two rules, two new ones, HTTP and HTTPS. So here you can just pick HTTP and HTTPS. Then it's always TCP, port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS. And then you're going to allow all IPv4, all IPv6, and this will allow all traffic. If you forget to do this and you're going to create the SSL certificate, it's going to fail, because what Let's Encrypt is going to do is going to try to connect to your IP address. And if it cannot connect, then the verification mechanism is going to fail. Let's try to run an application now. So let's open this README again. We did the Nginx ingress and we're going to start an application. This is just an example application that I'm going to start. I'll create them and I will show you what's in them. This is just a deployment. Kubernetes demo. It will just show us hello world. We have a service for this. And then we're going to connect this with the ingress controller. My app ingress. Here we have the ingress controller, kind ingress. The name is my app of this ingress controller. And then we have a rule. The rule says that if the host is my app New Tech Academy, then use this backend here, my app, the service in Kubernetes on port 80 on HTTP. So whenever I'm going to type this in my browser, I should be able to connect to my app. To be able to make this work, you need a domain name. You need to be able to edit your DNS. If you're using AWS, then that is in Route 53. If you just register the domain name anywhere, you should most probably have a DNS control panel, and that's what I'm going to use. In this DNS control panel, you will then say my app New Tech Academy goes to an IP address. So what IP addresses can it go to? Let's go back to our DigitalOcean control center. Here we have the master and 1, 2, 3 nodes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one node, node 1, and put a DNS record from my app New Tech Academy to this IP address. Now with DigitalOcean, the downside is that these IP addresses can change. This node can go down and then you want to use this one. So the solution for DigitalOcean is that you can also use floating IP addresses. So you can click here and you can enable a floating IP address. And this IP address you can then manually or automatically move from one node to another node. Now we are using DigitalOcean just as an example. You're going to maybe run something on-prem, maybe use another cloud provider. So how exactly you're going to configure this? It's a bit out of scope of this course. You just have to make sure that the IP address that you're going to pick now is either static, it can also be a static IP address, or can move from one node to another node. As long as this node is running, there's no issue. So for the demo, I will just use only one IP address, only this IP address, to configure as a DNS record. This is the Namecheap dashboard. My domain name is registered at Namecheap. So I just logged in here. I bought this domain name years ago. You can then click on the domain name and then there's advanced DNS where you can then add records. So you can add a new record here. It's of type A. Host is going to be my app. And then the IP address is then going to be the IP address of the first node. And then you click on save the changes. And then it will be added here, my app, this IP. I also added my app with the same IP address, but you don't have to. You can use one or more records. So this points to this IP address and DNS is cached, so it's not easy to change this. So this should be a static IP address. In case you are using DigitalOcean, you can use a floating IP address, like I explained. Otherwise, on-prem, what a lot of people also do is to put a load balancer in front of your Kubernetes cluster and use that IP address as a static IP address. So then if I now try to go to this URL, that should actually work. Let me try this with curl. So if I go to this IP address of the node, I get a default backend 404. This is the default backend of the Nginx controller. Now I should also be able to go to my app, new tech academy, and I get the return with the 503 error. So let's have a look at our pods. My app is running now for 8 minutes. Let's have a look at our service. My app is running, port 3000. Let's have a look at our ingress. And it seems that I made a small mistake here in my app ingress. This pod is running on port 3000, but the service port was set at 80. So let's apply this. And then now it should work. It says hello world. So my app new tech academy, the ingress controller is working. I set the firewall. Let's Encrypt should also be able to access it once I do the verification. So what's next? I can create the certification manager. I can do helm install of the certification manager in the kube system, and it's going to be stable/cert manager. Cert manager has been deployed successfully. In order to begin issuing certificates, we need a cluster issuer or issuer, and then we need a certificate. So I already prepared this up front. We have an issuer for staging and for prod. You can only do 20 requests per week to Let's Encrypt, so it's best to do staging first to make sure everything works, and only then to use the production. I'm using the issuer. You can also use cluster issuer. So this is only for the default namespace. Cluster issuer is for all the namespaces. You need to enter your email address here. So I will leave it like that. And I'm going to enter my email address here. But when you do this demo, you will have to replace this line as well. I'll do the same in the production one. And then I'm going to kubectl create the issuer for staging and the issuer for production. So those are the issuers. They just describe that Let's Encrypt will issue a certificate for us. So if I take this again, it is going to use this staging API for Let's Encrypt. And this email address will notify me if anything goes wrong with the renewal of certificate, if it's going to expire, for instance. Then we're going to have a certificate for staging. This is of kind certificate. The name is my app. I'm going to store my certificate in a secret called my app TLS staging. And then the issuer is going to be my app Let's Encrypt staging, which is the issuer I just created. Common name is my app new tech academy. You can also add multiple host names. So for instance, if you have the domain name itself, the apex, and then www, then you can uncomment these lines and changes into your domain. This is then for the verification process. You're going to use HTTP as a verification process. The ingress controller is going to be my app. What's going to happen is it's going to edit our ingress controller because our ingress controller is responsible for this domain. Let's Encrypt always use the same URL for the verification process. So what's going to happen here is there's going to be an extra rule that says if you hit / and then the specific URL, then go to a separate app, which will then respond with the correct data that is necessary for the verification process. So you normally wouldn't see much of this because this all happens automatically. You're going to create this certificate staging, and then we can check what is happening using kubectl get certificate. We have a my app certificate of 9 seconds old. I will describe this. And then it says I don't have a TLS certificate. So I'm going to prepare one with the issuer, which is Let's Encrypt. It's going to present the challenge. It's going to perform a self-check. So if you have a look at the ingress, let's describe the ingress. So then you see that there were updates 17 seconds ago. And what happened is that there was a rule injected to make this verification work. So this certificate was issued successfully. And then there's also a renewal scheduled. This is a staging certificate, so it's not going to be recognized by the browsers. We need a production certificate, and that one will be then recognized. How do we configure the certificate? So we can edit the my app ingress, and here we can just enable TLS. The secret name is my app TLS staging. The host is my app new tech academy. I can do a kubectl apply of this my app ingress, and then this will use the newly created certificate. So now I will just show it in the browser. It says your connection is not private for my app new tech academy, authority invalid. So we have the new certificate, but it's a staging certificate. It's not recognized. If you want to have a recognized one, then we have to use the production certificates. So that's what I'm going to configure now. So I already kubectl added the issuer. Let's have a look at the production certificate. It looks exactly the same, but we're going to use a different secret, and we're going to use a different issuer. kubectl create certificate prod.yml. Let me just delete first the old one. Don't need the staging one once it works. Just going to create the production one now. And we can describe the certificate. It says the my app TLS prod is not found, so it's going to create the certificate, and now it's going to use the production API instead of the staging API. So if we describe our ingress again, then we see now we are on time. The rule has been edited, the path has been injected, and this is actually the verification process that's going on. So everything that hits /well known and then all the rest, it goes to an app that has been spun up for the purpose of the verification for Let's Encrypt. This will disappear again. Now it's already disappeared, so you have to be lucky to see it. And then if we describe the certificate, the certificate is now issued. We still need to change our ingress, my app ingress. I will change this in prod. I will apply this. This is configured. I see my hello world and it is secure. The certificate is valid. So I have my app new tech academy. This certificate is valid. It is issued by Let's Encrypt authority. So this is how you then can create a for your website so that it is then encrypted. I did it with an ingress controller and then use this DNS name my app new tech academy to forward it to the IP addresses of one of the nodes. But as I explained, there's lots of different ways to make this work. You can use a floating IP, static IP, another load balancer. You just have to make sure for high availability, when the node disappears, when the node crashes, that the IP is still available. Either by moving this IP around to another node, because every node exposes port 80 and 443 with this ingress configuration, or by other mechanisms. So this is it for this demo. We now have a valid SSL certificate that we then can use for our applications. There's a lot of configuration involved and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. To debug it, first of all, make sure that your firewall is open for Let's Encrypt. And second, there are some processes in there are some pods in the kube system namespace that you can check the logs of. So if something goes wrong, you can do logs of the cert manager of the namespace kube system, and they have two containers. So then you specify -c ingress shim or cert manager. And here you can see what happened when we asked for a certificate. If anything goes wrong, then you will see your errors here. You can type in the error in the GitHub of Cert Manager or in Google, or at the Udemy Q&A, you can ask questions and you can also post your errors if you don't get it working.